Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Captain Craig Brathwaite is disagreeing with those who say the West Indies are using a weakened squad in the ongoing Test series in Bangladesh. Brathwaite was speaking early on Wednesday in the build-up to tonight's start of the second Test in Dhaka. The right-handed opener, who will be leading the side for the 7th time in Tests, also discussed how he has been managing the role of leader.
Well, first of all, I want to say this is a depleted squad. Everyone here is fully capable of doing well on an international level, which I firmly believe. For me, it's no added pressure. As the opening batsman, my role, is always to build the foundation for the team. And that's what I'm accustomed to, and that's what I continue to do. Or strive, to do to the best of my ability. I don't see it as added pressure, but this is not a depleted team.
The West Indies played 2 specialist spinners in the opening test, while the Bangladeshis went with 4. It meant Nkrumah Bonner and the skipper were needed with their part-time spin. And Brathwaite says that they are considering the inclusion of another specialist spinner to partner Jomel Warrican and Rakeem Cornwall for the second test.
Looking at the pitch, it will be a thought. For sure, I think Pramod is a quality spinner, very experienced, over the years. So, obviously come tomorrow, that decision will be made.
Right, so we're about to be joined by, of course, international cricket commentator Fazeer Mohammed. But before we go across, I'll start with Brent, of course. Brent, do you think Craig Brathwaite has, is he onto something by saying his West Indies team is not a depleted one?
Well, he's on to trying to cheer them up. I think that's what he's on to. It's expected by a leader to keep the confidence in. It's obvious that it is a depleted squad and some of the better players are not here. And it really is an opportunity for the West Indies to try new things. I'm happy that they're looking at adding an additional spinner to this next Test series. And I think it's an opportunity to explore. And we've seen so far from the ones that have been given the opportunity that they've been taking it with both hands.
Okay, Fazeer, what do you make of Brathwaite's explanation as to why he thinks the West Indies side is not depleted? Does he have a point?
Fazeer seems to be frozen in time.
Well, I'm just going by what George said. He said a wise man said nothing, so I'm trying to be wise. But clearly you want me to be a big fool for the next few minutes. So, George, thanks very much for setting me up.
I love Faz. Faz, that was good.
But to answer your question about the depleted squad, it's PR. It is a depleted squad, and I see no shame in saying that. The fact of the matter is, in normal circumstances, wouldn't Jason Holder be there? Wouldn't Shea Hope be there, having regained his form and confidence? Shimron Hetmyer, so many other players you can call, and I understand his point that he has to say the right things. Say it's not a weakened team, but it is. And I know you raised this a couple of days ago, George, about not wanting to appear to be negative. Well, I know we have SportsMax and SportsMax 2. If you want to have SportsMax PR, well, that's where you'll put that sort of thing. And the thing is that it is a depleted squad, but they've performed supremely well, which to me, acknowledging that it is a squad that would have had some players who would not normally be there, and they were able to pull off an historic victory, I think that's a fillip.
Definitely, Faz, and of course, heading into the second test, Bangladesh, they're without their star, Shakib Al Hasan, they're without Shadman, and of course, West Indies, their confidence would have been, up top-notch. Heading into the second test, what do you think their mindset would be? What would you advise the West Indies team to do to ensure that they win this?
Well, I think more than anything else, and I think they've already acknowledged that. Simmons mentioned that maybe yesterday in speaking to the media. He said, well, what happened in Chattogram is done. That's over. And that's the way to look at it, because the next match in a few hours' time starts at 0-0. So if you go into the match thinking that you've already gotten the better of Bangladesh and it's just a matter of doing the same things and you'll do it again, then it's almost guaranteed that you'll be disappointed. You've got to go about it being as desperate, being as hungry, being as eager to prove the doubters wrong, to prove that it's not a depleted squad. And that's how you go about it. You go about it as if you're 1-0 down and you're playing to square the series.
Definitely. And to the Veerasamy Perumal point, should he be included for the second test? Would you include him?
I think it depends upon the nature of the pitch, and I think Craig said it correctly. You can only wait until the day itself. Of course, he did feature in Bangladesh a few seasons ago when the West Indies won 2012. They won 2-0, and he played a part in that. He was very successful in the 2020 regional first-class season. Many were shocked that he wasn't even included in the training squad for the tours of England and then New Zealand, but now he's gotten his chance. But again, it really depends on how things shape up on the morning of the test itself. And the other part is, if you leave him out, if you include him, who do you leave out? Do you leave out Shane Mosley? Because I think it's always harsh when you leave out someone after just one test match, even if they've had a double failure. Do you leave out one of the bowlers to accommodate him? Would that place a greater burden on the fast bowlers or a lone fast bowler if it happens to be that? So they've got to find the balance right. And I think a lot of that will be influenced by the actual nature of the pitch.
Fazeer, if you agree that the Bangladeshis made a tactical mistake in that first test by not seeking to bat for a half an hour more, and so half an hour more would have taken some time out of the game. It would also have put some more runs on the tins. And if you agree also that perhaps they took liberties because it was only the West Indies and it was the second string West Indies. Do you think that that was a hard lesson for the Bangladeshis that they should learn from when the second test start? Don't take liberties with this West Indies team and be sensible about setting a fourth innings target. Don't make it too much to kill the game, but don't make it a realistically achievable target.
Well, you might have to mute my microphone because I disagree with you on that score about the declaration. I would have thought that anyone would have felt comfortable declaring, and if they had played the game properly, and we talked about this previously, had they taken the reviews that were available to them on the final morning, neither of the two heroes, as it turned out, for the West Indies would have been able to make a...
I hate interrupting you, my friend. I hate interrupting you, but let me just interject. Are you saying that you are certain, were the opponents India with their strongest test side, or Australia or England or South Africa, that the Bangladeshis would have declared at the point they did in that first test?
No, that's where you're right. That's where you're right. I think that they would have waited a bit longer, but I think any team worth its salt in Test cricket should feel comfortable defending 395. And I think Bangladesh, you're right as well, a measure of complacency, because they probably felt even without Shakib Al Hassan not fully fit because they gambled taking him into the match, they probably felt, well, it's only the West Indies and they always lose, but in fact, not always, but they've lost the last couple of times that they've played Test match cricket here in Bangladesh. We're going to beat them again, so we could gamble with Shakib. We're going to win anyway on the last day without him defending 395. But you're right, if it were one of the top-notch teams, they would have batted longer, probably even into the final morning.
Back to the Permaul point, because it's not new that fast bowlers on the subcontinent, anywhere in Asia, are almost seen as chopped liver, just spearmen really, rather than influencers. Well, I'm not comparing any of the West Indies cricketers, fast bowlers, to Jimmy Anderson, but we saw Jimmy deliver the match-winning performance, a part of the match-winning performance that England needed in that first test against India. Would you go back with the same bowling lineup that you did from the first test? Would you trust the fast bowlers to get something for you in the way that a good fast bowler, a great fast bowler, Jimmy Anderson managed to get on a wicket that we all saw was friendly to spin?
I would go back with Kemar Roach and Shannon Gabriel and beg Craig Brathwaite not to be reactionary as a captain. Because again, if you looked on that first session of the first test match, you had Shadman Islam fending off the short balls from Shannon Gabriel, looking very uncomfortable. And it was only after a couple were popped up to a non-existent short leg that a short leg was put in place. So if you're a test captain, you've got to be proactive. You don't wait till something happens. You've got to give your fast bowlers something to work with and show that faith in them. And more to your point about Jimmy Anderson, we don't need Jimmy Anderson to show us the value of world-class fast bowling, because the West Indies would have done it many times over with a Michael Holding, with a Patrick Patterson, with a Malcolm Marshall, with an Andy Roberts. So many of our great fast bowlers excel in those conditions. And again, if you ask them about it, rather than gripe and complain, they go about their business with the support of their captain and their fielders.
And I'm going to highlight something here, Fazeer, that of course is not news to you, but in talking to you, I can give some information to some people. I'm looking at a list here of the top 10 wicket takers in Bangladesh versus West Indies series. And you, of course, wouldn't be surprised to know that of the top 10, 5 of them are fast bowlers. Kemar Roach at number 2, Pedro Collins at 4, Shannon Gabriel at 6, and Tino Best down at the bottom at 10. Well, Tino comes at around number 11. So the point is that fast bowlers for the West Indies have been successful against Bangladesh, in Bangladesh, and of course here in the Caribbean. So the idea that, yeah, we need to be spin heavy going into the test, the numbers, Fazeer, and men lie, women lie, numbers don't, although men and women lie with numbers, the numbers doesn't suggest that that approach would be the best.
I think it's about how you play the game. If it turns out tonight that it's an absolute dust bowl, that the dust is rising from even the falling of the coin, well, then you might want to consider a third spinner. But again, you've got fast bowlers, you've got Shannon Gabriel, you've got Kemar Roach, but you don't have a short leg in place. You're not encouraging your fast bowler, and that's why I make the point that if you really want to be proactive and you really want to give your fast bowler, because if they get the early breakthrough, the Bangladeshis are very uncomfortable short pitch bowling, even on a dust bowl. If you've got your fast bowlers with the dew ball bending their backs, well, back them up. Put a forward short leg, put a leg gully if necessary, and let them fire it towards the helmets, and let's see what the Bangladeshis are made of.
Last question for you on this West Indies-Bangladesh series, Fazeer, as we head into day 1 of the second test. From your estimation, do the Bangladeshis have the depth of character and, more importantly, the quality to rebound, come at the West Indies hard from day 1 and win the second test?
I think they do to a certain extent, but also they'll be relying on the West Indies to be as infamously inconsistent as they have been for a long time, because it's very, very possible that 395 chased successfully for a victory could be 127 all out on the first morning of the second test match. Of course, from a West Indian perspective, you don't want it to happen, but history tells us there's always that likelihood.
All right, man, hold the line right there. We're not done with you yet. Brent Sancho, I come to you and I say to you, isn't it human nature though, Brent, in professional sport, where you look at your opponent whose form isn't so good, and then you realize that, yeah, it's a team from the championship. I'm a Premier League team. It's a team from the championship, and they've rested their big guns, that you take liberties with them in the way that we are agreeing that the Bangladeshis perhaps took some liberties with the West Indies in the time that they declared in that first test.
Listen, I've listened to many managers plead with players about not taking a team for granted, and it goes on deaf ears as an athlete. You can't overlook it. The first thing we do as players, you look at that team sheet and you start thinking, well, he's not on it, and he's not on it, and he's not on it, and you start looking that way and thinking, right, we could go and have that one. So it's hard as an athlete not to, of course, overlook your opponent, and I'm very sure that Bangladesh would have learned their lesson.
Yep. All right, we break right there. We're going to keep Fazeer Mohammed with us because we have to talk about that big series, India versus England. A lot riding on that. We'll pick up that discussion after this break.